If you're a business leader, I am sure you've been hearing a lot about AI over the last 18 months, and you might be trying to work out what does it mean to me and what does it mean to my business. And you may have even heard the term agentic AI and be a little bit confused around it. So, and I'm going to try and make it simple or in simpler terms, actually, as we go, and try and explain kind of the difference as you kind of approach different tasks that you or your team could be doing with AI. So, bear with as I jump into it. So, firstly, really, from an AI perspective, you're all familiar with ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity and those sorts of tools, which kind of sit on the lower end of what is possible. At the top end is full control systems that take you through and automate a whole lot of functions and do a whole lot of work, particularly with large data sets. Really, what it comes down to is how much autonomy and value creation can the AI or your data do for you, versus ultimately how much integration is required to make that happen, which is really a level of complexity. So let me explain this maybe in a little bit better of a term. So, firstly, you're all familiar with ChatGPT or Copilot, Perplexity, Gemini, you name it. There's a bunch of tools out there where you can type stuff in. It will basically predict what text you need and give you responses. It is super useful for like helping you get started on things and creative, but unless you start adding a bunch of custom instructions, you are going to get relatively generic terms and relatively generic kind of outputs, which from me, my perspective is kind of like, well, you end up then just putting more generic stuff into the world and it doesn't really feel like you. The next step up from your traditional LLM is an agent, or effectively something that you train to behave like you. So, for me as a CEO, I like sending pretty short, sharp, effective emails. I like to talk about what action I require or what decision I've made, and then maybe have a few bullet points. If it's external, I'll kind of put Kia ora on the beginning of it and sign it off. But if it's internal, I generally kind of just avoid all of that. So, effectively, with an agent, I can go and train an agent in my style and my way of doing emails, so that when I ask it to reply to an email or do something in an email, its initial draft is going to come back written a lot more like the way that I would do it, rather than adding a whole lot of adjectives in and different things that kind of is just not the way that I communicate generally. And so that's an agent. You can go set those up. They're relatively easy to do and they make your life more efficient than just using a traditional chat like ChatGPT and those sorts of things. From there, you kind of move to what's called a multi agent specialist. And so that's where you really start getting into what's called agentic AI. So you've got one agent talks to another agent, talks to another agent. So, as an example, for me, because I'm doing a bunch of consulting at the moment, what I've done is I've set up a billing system. It goes and grabs the information one agent does from one place. It kind of summarizes that. It then sends it off to ChatGPT and takes all of my like random notes that I make, turns those into something beautiful. It brings it back to another agent that passes it off to Xero and creates a draft invoice in Xero for me. And so you can see there that there's multiple agents going on, and with one click of a button, I end up generating my invoices right the way through to draft. I then review them just to make sure that it's kind of what I would expect and send them off to my clients. Easy peasy. Takes a little bit more work, and it's kind of in that orange category because it's the more know-how you've got around technology, the easier that stuff is. Whereas the first two are a little bit easier to do. You then get the way up to like what is fully integrated systems. So back a few years ago when we were founding Cohired, which is a tech platform for recruitment, we would do things like ingest CVs. We would go off and map all of those roles in a CV. We would map all of the different skills and experiences in those CVs. And then we could rank and match people based on those rules and experience, right the way through to predicting what job that they would love in the future. And then the other key part about this is because it was built on large data and large data models, basically real genuine machine learning is in there. So it's actually learning from its mistakes and it's learning from its successes as it goes along. And so it's a lot more fully integrated into what you're doing. Takes a lot of kind of like ingenuity and developers and those sorts of things to get those things across the line. So when you look at those sort of areas, you can see there that once you get up to this area here, there's a lot of autonomy in terms of what the system can do, but it takes a lot of integration, and therefore it's a lot harder to pull off. From a money perspective, I kind of like think about what the cost is. So really, I mean, ChatGPT is functionally free-ish, in terms of what you do. When you start getting into task handling and that sort of thing, it's kind of in the hundreds of dollars a year. I know for ChatGPT to make an agent, you have to actually be on a pro version, so there's $120 odd a year anyway. But you kind of can do lots of little things, but you're spending smaller amounts of money. Once you start getting into autonomous action, it starts being in the thousands. So sometimes you have to start bringing a bit of resource or somebody that's got a bit of know-how in terms of integration, or you've got to go and spend a lot of time and energy working out how to do that, which has a cost to it as well. So you're really starting to get some real bang for your buck in terms of autonomy and value, but it's starting to cost more in terms of integration. And then when you get up into the full control systems, you're now talking tens of thousands of dollars. I think probably 5 years ago, that was probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the cost point is dramatically reducing, but you can see that it's ultimately that's what it is. So just depending on where you are when you're thinking about agentic AI, you can kind of just hopefully stop and say, possibly in this area here is where you can get lots of bang for buck. You can kind of end up crafting emails or doing minor tasks that are super valuable for you, and you can create those within your own team and your own environment super quickly. Once you start getting up into this area, if you don't have a tech team, you may need a little bit of resource just to help you do that, but you don't have to go and employ a developer or anything like that. There's plenty of people around that can help. So that's a little bit about that. Hopefully, that gives you a little bit of insight into that whole idea of agentic AI and how AI is possible. I know I said I was going to make it simple. It probably isn't as simple as I would have liked, but that is technology in a nutshell. Last thing I would say is that I am just kind of doing a bit of an experiment. I've been experimenting with AI and stuff, obviously, for a long time, but doing a bit of an experiment and running a purposeful productivity lab. So it's going to be about 45 minutes long every other Friday, and you're welcome to join that. Basically, I'll teach you one big idea, show you in real time what is an idea that you can do around being more productive, or and making your teams more productive, or predictive technology. And then, after I've then done the big idea, which is about 10 minutes, the floor is open for any questions about all things productivity, all things AI, all things purposeful teams. So join in. It's Chatham House rules, so you won't get to. It won't be recorded, and find out. I'll put the link in the details below. That's me. Have a great day. Ka te he.